Well, a good Tuesday afternoon. We have our 11 a.m. advisory in on now Tropical Storm Helene. So this is officially our 8th named storm of the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season. Winds are now sustained of 45 miles an hour. So that's above the criteria for a tropical storm. Obviously, once you get to that 39-mile-an-hour threshold, that's when you get tropical storm status, and going to continue to strengthen as it does move throughout the Northwest Caribbean Sea. But want to note pressure continuing to drop now at 1,000 millibars, and its movement has increased just ever so slowly, still going northwest, but it was going northwest at 10 miles an hour as of 5 a.m. this morning. At the 8 a.m. advisory, it bumped up to 11, and now we are at 12 miles an hour. So you can see Helene is going to trek through that northwestern portion of the Caribbean Sea and really trying to thread the needle between the Yucatan Peninsula and the western edge of Cuba right there. It does look like it's trending further over just around the Cancun area and expected to strengthen into a Category 1 hurricane later on this evening, but run really close to the Cancun area. But obviously, if Helene is to just go over this strait of water, this would really not allow it to have any speed bumps. So when a tropical system moves over land, that allows for weakening and just moving over a tiny portion of land, whether it be this western edge of Cuba or this just northeastern edge of the Yucatan Peninsula. That would allow for a little bit of an inhibition with the strengthening of Helene, but not really forecasted to do that. As you can see, going to maintain Category 1 status all the way into tomorrow, and then as it treks through the eastern Gulf of Mexico, running over that really warm Gulf water, expected to gain major hurricane status by 8 a.m. on Thursday. And then sometime Thursday evening, it's looking closer and closer to about the 8 p.m. hour, going to make landfall somewhere along the Florida Gulf Coast. So obviously this cone has been trimmed back just a little bit, but the western edge of the cone, so this cone means any possible scenario where the center of the storm may go over. This is not where the impacts are going to be associated with Helene, but obviously the western edge for possible landfall around the Panama City area, just in between Panama City and Destin on the Florida Panhandle, and then the easternmost edge of this just probably to the west of Ocala along the Big Bend area. Tampa has been taken out of the cone, which is a good sign in terms of possible landfall in the Tampa Bay area, but still, like I said, going to feel the impacts outside of this cone. So like I said, making landfall somewhere in this cone around where that Category 3 stamp is at Thursday at 8 p.m. and then going to continue to trek to the north through the state of Georgia, maybe eastern Alabama. Obviously, still a lot of fine tuning to see which side of the storm is going to come here in central Georgia, but expected to weaken into a tropical storm. This timestamp is Friday at 8 a.m., so it very well could maintain hurricane status as it does trek through central Georgia here. Now taking a look at the whole cone itself, going to continue up to the north and then make a little northwestern shift as it does trek through the Ohio Valley area of the United States. Definitely going to start picking up in speed as we go throughout the next 2 days is Helene. So definitely wanted to mention this too. We have had 7 named storms of the 2024 hurricane season so far. Helene makes the number 8th right there. Now taking it through our future view, we're going to focus on today just very briefly, maybe some pop-up showers, but going to climb above the 90-degree mark once again. Very warm for the 3rd day of fall. Once we get into tomorrow, we start to see clouds ahead of an approaching front from the west. So this definitely not really looking to pose any impacts to our forecast. If anyone sees any rain from this frontal boundary, it will be our western counties and our northwestern counties, but it really looks to be further up to the northwest and further over to the west in the eastern edge of Alabama. So once we get into the overnight hours on Thursday, we start to see the cloud cover clashing with each other, approaching from the west, northwest from this frontal boundary, but also starting to see those winds push in from these outer bands of rain associated with Helene by the time we get to 5 a.m. on Thursday. And as you can see, some pockets of heavier rain enveloped within this, really more so as we go into the 10 a.m. hour on Thursday all across central Georgia. So really not leaving anyone out in terms of rain. So that's a good thing, definitely, because we have been rather dry as of recently here in central Georgia, but definitely not wanting to receive the amount of rain that we are looking to associated with Helene as of right now. Maybe a break as future view is hinting. This is the graph model hinting at maybe about 3 p.m. in the afternoon, maybe more areas just mostly cloudy rather than receiving rain, but another reinforcing punch of rain as we go throughout the 8 p.m. hour on Thursday. That's about the time we were expecting landfall further down to our south and our southwest. And then as we take it into the overnight hours, early Friday morning, that's when we're definitely seeing really heavy pockets of rain, and you're really seeing that circulation, maybe even a definitive eye as it does move through central Georgia. And this is far from certain. We do see some variation with the graph model, especially this time of year, so we will continue to track this and see if this does does play true according to this scenario, but this would bring very gusty winds to central Georgia, very heavy rainfall amounts, but also that center of circulation right over here to the east. Many of our eastern counties would be enveloped in what we call the dirty side of the storm, and then they would run a severe weather risk. So right now, the SPC has outlined many of our counties here in central Georgia in this level 1 out of 5 severe weather risk. I do believe that the counties included in this is definitely going to fluctuate. It's really subject to change, but right now it encompasses areas from Montezuma up to Macon and then over to Sandersville and everyone further down to the south and east. So the main potential threats, those gusty winds and the flooding risk of those heavy rainfall showers that train over the same area and the same area over and over again, but also on the east side of the storm, wherever that center of circulation is, you do run the risk for a spin-up tornado. That is something we are going to closely monitor over the next couple of days. Now, taking it to long range, you can see very fast moving. I want to emphasize that, number one, but also a very large storm, widespread impacts. You can see bringing rain as far west over into the eastern edge of Oklahoma and then enveloping most of the east coast as it does trek further inland, but going to get on out of here in central Georgia. In fact, almost the entire state of Georgia besides the mountain areas by about the 3 p.m. hour on Friday. So this will set the stage for some pretty nice weather as we go into football Friday night, but obviously looking at the impacts we're going to have, probably going to be a pretty messy scenario all throughout central Georgia. Now we take it to Saturday at 4 p.m. looking like a clear day, and then maybe some wraparound moisture creating some rain chances Sunday and then Monday. That definitely anything but certain as of right now, but just wanting to go ahead and throw it on the radar. So this has constituted a weather impact alert here in central Georgia all day Thursday as of now. As we just saw in the future view run, we could see an overnight risk into the early morning hours on Friday, so we may include the first half of Friday in this weather impact alert as well. Taking it to the impact, we definitely know wind and rain are going to be impacts here no matter what happens, whether the center of circulation is further to the west, further to the east. It is all going to depend on, or not going to depend on anything. The wind and rain are going to be present. The side of the storm we're on is really going to have the severe weather implications. So what you need to do, have the 13WMAZ app, go to 13WMAZ.com and continue to stay updated with us here on the weather team, or also have your handy dandy weather radio. That always comes in handy for situations like this. So the main takeaways right now with Tropical Storm Helene now, the severity of impacts still a little bit uncertain. How fast those wind gusts are going to get, those rainfall totals, the severe weather implications. And like I said, those severe weather implications are going to depend on what side of the storm we're on. If we're on the west side of that center of circulation, that's the calmer side, so we wouldn't see as gusty winds. We probably wouldn't see as heavy rain showers, wouldn't have a severe weather risk. But if we're on the east side of that center of circulation, that's where we would run the severe weather risk. And obviously those wind gusts and rain showers would definitely be heavier. But like I said, this remains a large storm with a widespread impact, going to continue to rapidly intensify as it moves through the eastern edge of the Gulf of Mexico, something you definitely want to remain very diligent with. And that weather impact alert day on Thursday, maybe even into the first half of Friday, just remaining a day that you definitely want to stay updated on the forecast and keep a close eye on the radar in order to go about your day.